Good evening, guys, and happy Tuesday to all of your sunshiny faces. We have had one of the most, I don't want to say bizarre, I don't really know what to say. I mean, it was a little bit bizarre, it was very unfortunate. So apparently what ended up happening was I woke up this morning, originally when my alarm was going off about 8 o'clock. And then all of a sudden I get up and I like hit the snooze button like twice. I ended up getting up a little while later. I look, my alarms are all off and I'm like, that's weird. And then I looked and my salt lamp, I normally leave it on all the time, but I have it on normally at night so that, you know, it's lighter in my room. And all of a sudden I look up and I was like, that's turned off too. And then I was like, oh no, did we blow a fuse? Like, you know, was somebody running something like the hair dryer and, you know, something else was going or whatever. So I go and I go, you know, quick put my slippers on. I ran in the living room and I'm like, nope, the oven's, you know, the oven clock is not on. You know, went in the living room and was looking and like my mom's sitting in there and there's no lights on anywhere. And I was like, did you know the power is out? And she's like, yeah, it went out at apparently around 9 o'clock or something this morning. Or 9:30, I'm not completely sure. Close to maybe 10 o'clock, somewhere between 9 and 10. So, and I didn't actually get up until like 10:30, 11 o'clock almost, because after my alarm stopped going off, I just fell back to sleep and I didn't even realize it. So I woke up late today. But then we find out that the power is out because, well, my mom actually found out that we had a letter and we found out that the power was scheduled to be turned off because they were doing tree trimming today. Our power company was doing tree trimming. And so, which is completely bizarre and unknown as to why they were doing this. Well, not unknown. It was known that they were doing it for what they claimed was maintenance purposes. But the thing with that is that they do this in the spring, in the summer. I see them, I watched them this last spring or summer, whatever it was. I watched them do all behind our house, over our power lines. They do this constantly to, you know, I see them a lot of times, you know, up and down the street. They're doing it on, you know, like I said, power lines. Ours run behind our house. But then further down the street, they run like in front of the houses. So you'll see them sometimes in the street. Sometimes you'll see them in like the back alleys. Sometimes we don't have an alley behind our house anymore, but like, you know, they'll be doing it back there and whatever. And so I just see them all the time. They're climbing the trees and they're cutting, you know, the branches that are hanging over the power lines, and that's to do so that, like, they do that so that if there is a, you know, a storm, or, you know, if there is, you know, again, high winds, whatever it is, if a branch does wind up breaking, it doesn't fall on the power line, we don't lose power. So it's maintenance purposes. But I have never ever seen or heard of them doing it in the middle of winter, when they have to then turn off of our power on top of that in the middle of winter. So for, well, I'll tell you guys how long it ended up lasting, but for hours today, we were without power in winter, where it was only about 46 degrees outside or something like that. Our house ended up getting down to, at one point I checked, it was 63 degrees inside of the house, and we had no electricity too, because the original scheduled time was, it was supposed to only be during the day. Ended up taking way longer than that. And originally my mom checked, first thing she saw, they're supposed to be out until noon, scheduled like outage. And so, like I said, we're like completely floored, and you know, this is bizarre as to why they would have this scheduled outage in the middle of winter. And like I said too, when they do the ones back behind our house, and you know, all the ones that I see down the street and stuff like that, the power's never turned off to do this. They're more than capable of doing this without turning off the power. So for whatever reason though, there was something going on today that they had to, or felt the need to, turn off the power, and felt that this was such an emergency, which was, my dad finally got a hold of the power company. They said, well, this was, you know, because of the recent storm, we had to, you know, like turn off the power to be able to maintenance the trees that were, and we know that it was not the ones behind our house, that it was most likely ones that were on like the other side, like of our, like the next block over, but it was all of our like block and their block and multiple blocks around us were all out. My mom said it was something like 50 something houses were affected by this scheduled outage. So like I said, I don't know why they randomly, you know, ended up choosing to do this now, but when my dad got a hold of the person there, they were saying, oh, well, you know, it's because it's easier to do it when there's no leaves on the trees or something like that, which is, again, bizarre because they do it all summer long when there's leaves on the trees. Then they were trying to say, like, that my dad's talking to the same guy, and they've come up with like 8 excuses while he's talking to him. He's like, well, because of the recent storms, you know, some of the branches were hanging over the, you know, the, power lines, and they needed to be, you know, serviced or trimmed or whatever it was. And then after that, he's like still talking to my dad, and then he's like, well, you know, we just noticed that this was a, you know, a problem, and we wanted to prevent further, you know, like a outage from happening if the branches ended up falling. And my dad's like arguing with the guy like, well, if, you know, you guys do this in the summer, shouldn't you have taken care of that stuff in the summer and not had it been done now in the middle of winter where you have to turn off my power versus, you know, in the spring or fall or something like that when the temperature's a little bit more manageable and we don't have to have our heating or cooling, you know, turned on because, you know, again, scorching temperatures outside or freezing temperatures outside, you know, we have to keep our house, you know, at a temperature that's, you know, livable. And today was almost to the point where it was starting to get like really cold in the house. And then so anyways, you know, my parents are both, my mom has called the city too because she's trying to find out about this, and they're like, well, we know that it was a scheduled outage, but we don't have any more information for you, you know, like that it's more on the you know, the power company, you know's end, and they need to, you know, update you on the stuff and everything like that. And so then after that, we, you know, originally it said until noon. However, the paper that they sent out said until 2 o'clock. And so, you know, it said between 9 and 2 was how long the scheduled outage was supposed to be. So originally though they said noon. Then my mom's like, okay, but you know, 2 o'clock is when they said they'd be done. And that's probably to catch any, you know, extra stuff or, you know, whatever. So, you know, again, stuff happening. Well, it didn't, then it's, you know, like 2 o'clock is come and gone. It's almost 3 o'clock. My mom actually had to go and get coffee at Dunkin' Donuts because we had no way of cooking any food, you know, no way of heating anything up, no way of making coffee today. So my mom went to Dunkin' Donuts and got us coffee. And then, this was again earlier, but then by 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, my mom looks and now it says it's not supposed to be back on until 4:30. So, or 4 o'clock or something like that. So we're like, oh my goodness, okay. So, you know, we're all like, okay, this is really unfortunate, but okay, 4 o'clock. And then finally, it's 4 o'clock comes and rolls around and the power is still not back on. And my dad's not home from work, and like I said, this is when he's calling the power company. And by this time now, we look again at the scheduled outage time. It says not until 5:30 that the power is supposed to come back on. It's winter, guys, and it's cold. And on top of that too, we have no electricity, and it's getting dark lighter, you know, we're getting darker earlier out. Well, I mean, now we're past the equinox or whatever, you know, but the shortest day, and so now we're getting into slightly longer, but it's still, you know, it's dark before 4 o'clock now, you know. So we were sitting in pitch black for like an hour and a half. Finally, the power comes back on at 5:15. And so, but my mom went over actually to where they were working and asked them, you know, like, do you guys know when the power is going to be back on? Because this is winter and it's freezing cold outside. And, you know, our furnace is not, you know, like we're going to have to run our furnace now for hours to get it to catch back up on top of that too. And again, I told you guys, our house is not insulated very well. So like all of the hot air that we actually did have in the house was escaping very quickly. You know, also too, you know, again, our furnace now is going to have to work double time to try and get back to where it was. You know, it took probably at least a good half an hour or an hour of it constantly running to get caught back up. And so my dad ended up also putting like the space heaters back on, like we had to do when it was down to negative 30 degrees outside because of how cold it was in the house. So yeah, anyways, well, when my mom goes over there too, and we had noticed this as well, they weren't just trimming trees. They were taking a whole tree out, and it seemed like it was just one tree that they were taking out. So I don't know if somehow it was like the wind blew, like, you know, and the thing is too is that like even when it was windy, like there was still not really, like, I don't know, like, and the people to it, that the electrical company were also saying like, oh, well, because this was an emergency and we're trying to make sure that, you know, nothing happens. Like, I don't know if there was like branches broken on this specific tree that they ended up taking out, but they were not just trimming branches. They took out an entire tree on, you know, and it's like 2 houses away from us, like we could see it from our backyard. They were not just trimming trees today. So I don't know why the whole runaround with everything, like we weren't getting an actual straight answer of like what they were actually doing, and or why they had to do this and felt the need to do it in the middle of winter. And like I said too, just like the craziness of that. Like, I've never ever had that happen where we have had a scheduled outage in winter time ever. And we've lived in this same house for 25 years, something like that. It's never happened in our neighborhood. So I have no clue why, like I said, they randomly decided that something was so important that it had to be done now. Like, the tree was not hanging on the power lines. The tree was not, from what I could see, uprooted, and, you know, like, but they were trying to blame it on the storm, and that was why, like, these branches needed to be trimmed, and that's what they kept saying, but it wasn't. We know that there was a tree that was taken out. And so, like I said, for whatever reason, like, they just, today was just completely a waste, because I told you guys how yesterday I didn't get to editing or uploading either, because my dad ended up finding out he didn't have work yesterday. So then we were doing some things yesterday, and then today I had no power to do anything. So like I said, I was very frustrated. Everybody was insanely frustrated about that, because again, when we are thinking noon, 2 o'clock, then all of a sudden it goes into late into the afternoon. I spent all day reading today, guys. I spent like, I don't even know, 5 hours, something like that, reading today. Probably at least close to 3 hours. It was just like insane, and I couldn't do anything. And then by the time the power finally came back on, I was like, okay, well, now I have to get dishes done, I have to get laundry done, like those things that are kind of more of a priority. And so I was just, and by the end of the day, I was like, I just don't feel like doing anything else, because I laid around all day and was just really lazy. Like, I wasn't productive or anything like that. And so, well, I was pretty proud of myself though, getting my book read, because it's taken me, I didn't read anything since pretty much right before Christmas, so it's been a couple weeks, and so I was like, I'm starting to forget what happened in my book, so I had to get back to it. So it was a good catch-up day for that. But again, you know, at least I found a good way to, I guess, to use my time. My mom spent the entire day pretty much working on her planner, but like I say, guys, that it's maddening. I don't know, like, how, like, they're able to turn off your power and your heating in winter. Like, again, imagine if this had been a day where it wasn't at least a little bit warmer. Like, originally today was supposed to be that day I told you guys where it was supposed to be 60 degrees out, and then tomorrow was supposed to snow. Now it looks like it's supposed to stay a little bit more even, but we got like rain yesterday, it was raining today, and that was the other thing too. We have no electricity, there's no lighting in our house, and it's overcast, so it was super dark out almost all day today. So like, even reading, like, I was reading in front of like the living room window, like trying to hold the book up to like the window so that I could read. It was really ridiculous. Like I said, I don't know, you know, it was just crazy. So like I said, I can understand, like, you know, the need if there was, you know, again, broken branches and stuff like that, and, you know, this kind of stuff that happened, you know, kind of that storm right before Christmas. But if it was such an emergency, like my dad was saying, why did they send us out a notice about, you know, the scheduled outage, and then decide that they were going to take care of it? Like, instead of it being like, it's such an emergency, we have to turn people's power off right now and get to this, because again, there's branches on the line, there's, you know, whatever it was like, this wasn't a big enough emergency that, again, this couldn't wait until, you know, most likely a couple of weeks. And if it was, and then the branch did wind up falling on the power lines or something like that, then you have a mandatory, like, okay, the power has to be shut off because we have to handle this. That happened actually at our house, but it was only the line to our house, and it didn't actually break the line, it just fell on it, and so it like stretched the line out kind of. But there was a tree that ended up falling actually on our garage roof, and like I said, the power line like wasn't ever cut or severed, but they did turn off the power to, you know, like address the situation there. So like I said, we've experienced similar things to that, but nothing that had to turn the entire, you know, 54 whatever houses off from power. Was just crazy, like I said too. And in the middle of winter, like I said, that if it wasn't that dire that you know, the power was already out, or like I said, there's branches hanging on lines and stuff like that, none of that was. Everything looked like it was fine. So to have this scheduled, like, you know, maintenance of stuff just seems ridiculous. I don't, like I said, I don't know who planned that, but it was just, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard and have ever experienced so far. So, like I said, I'm even more frustrated too, because now I'm like, it's Wednesday tomorrow, and I'm so behind with like everything. Like, you know, I couldn't even clean the bathroom because, like I said too, like our frosted glass windows, there was no light in the bathroom at all today. Like I couldn't see anything. So I was like, I can't clean the bathroom. I can't. I was like, I guess I have to just sit here and just read all day, because I didn't want my battery on my phone to die out either. So I was just like, I don't know. Anyways, guys, it was crazy today. Like, I know I'm not alone in thinking that too, because like I said, my mom was like, this is insane. Like Matthew, Jack, like I know, like our neighbors too. I think actually one of our neighbors was gone literally for the entire time that it was out. Like they got home, I think like about 10 minutes after it actually came back on, and I think they left for work like right before that. You know, it's a lot of times like right around the time Jack leaves for school sometimes. So like I said, it was normally early in the morning, like before 9 o'clock. So I'm pretty sure that, like I said, they ended up like completely missing the whole power outage. I wonder if they even know that there was no power for the day today. You know, other than again the letter that was sent, but they didn't have to, like I said, you know, be at home for that. But like on top of that too, we're on, like, everybody's on break, everybody's at home, like, you know, so what are we supposed to do like during that time too? Like again, with kids, with, you know, like you know, like I said, that kind of stuff. Like there's a lot of people at home right now, and you know, like I said, for those reasons too, and or, you know, if you took a couple days off after, you know, the holidays for work or whatever, like, and people are at home, like, and then your power just goes out. Like, you know, like I said, scheduled power goes out. It just seems crazy to me. So anyways, guys, I'm gonna take a shower and get to bed, because I can do that in the warmth and in the you know, thankfully light. But I'll see you guys in tomorrow's vlog. If you guys did enjoy today's, make sure you guys give a big old thumbs up. If you guys are new, we'd love if you'd subscribe, and I'll see all of your sunshiny faces tomorrow. So bye, guys.